Well, hello, welcome to our reading of the Greek New Testament, and I've been reading the book of Revelation up to chapter 6. And this is a fairly longer chapter, so I'll do this in two parts. Kai eden hoti enoixen ton anion mian ekton heptas bragidon. Kai ekus henos ekton tesaron zoion legontes hos phone brontes erku. And I looked, so for Adon I think I looked, probably the best way of rendering that at this stage. So I looked, or I saw when anoixen, now this is from anoigo, and it's as I've mentioned before, it's a funny verb. It is actually a compound. It's from originally oignumi, and then you get anoigo, but the an is actually ano. It is a preposition, but the verb got mishandled even in much earlier Greek, and so we see here it gets augmented. So it's opened. So and I saw when, and the subject of it is to anion, it's this diminutive. So the small lamb opened, and mian is one, and then from the seven seals, one of the seven seals. Sphragus with a rho is a feminine noun, so for the seal. So I looked, so I saw when the Lamb opened one of the seven seals, and I heard, and akuo here is taking a genitive of person, which is good Greek. So I heard one of the four zoon, living creatures, legontes, saying, so genitive agreeing with henos, hos, and it was like the voice of thunder. So like a voice of thunder, or like a sound almost, but phone is a voice. Erku, imperative from erkamai, come. Kai edon, kai idu, hippos lukos, kai ho katheminos ebauton ekon toxon. Kai edothe auto Stephanos, kai exelthin nikon kai hina nikese. And I looked, or I saw, and behold, a hippos lukos, a white horse. This is a male horse because you've got a male masculine adjective, so a white horse, and the one sitting ep auton, upon it, having, another participle, having toxon, a bow, and now this is his constant use of kai for and, which is very Hebraic and doesn't really, it's not very particularly good Greek, but he's joined together the various participles and main verb with kais all the way through. And it was given, and a Stephanos, a garland, was given to him. And he went out, nikon, literally conquering, and in order that he might conquer, which may have perhaps a future sense with the intention of conquering, something like that, but it's here, it's hina plus a subjunctive, in order that he might conquer. So just to quickly zip through that, so I saw when the Lamb opened one of the seven seals, and I heard one of the four living creatures speaking like a voice of thunder, come. And I saw, and behold, a white horse, and the one sitting on it having a bow, and a garland was given to him, and he went out conquering, and in order that he might, and perhaps that he might conquer. But this made the last bit here with the intention of conquering. Kai hoti anoixen ten sphagida, ten deuteran, erkusatu tu deuteru tsou lagontos erku. And when he opened the second seal. This is feminine, so hence we get the feminine adjective. I heard, and again genitive after verbs of hearing, I heard the second living creature saying, come. Kai exelthen, allos hippos puros, kai to kathe meno ebauton edos theauto lebain ten erenain ectes geis, kai hina alelus susin, kai edos theauto machaira megale. And so when he opened the seal, I heard the second seal. I heard the second living creature saying, come, and he went, and another horse went out, puros, a ruddy one, a red one. It's connected with fire. It's the red colour of fire, so it's sort of ruddy or red, a red-coloured horse. And for the one sitting upon it, edothe, we get another aorist passive here from didomi, that we had one up here, aorist passive from didomi, so it was granted, perhaps here, to him, labain, to take peace, ectes geis, from the earth, and perhaps it was granted that now, after hina, we would expect a subjunctive, but we get here a future, which is very strange. This is that verb spasdo, again we've seen before, slaughter. So the kai is redundant really here. It's that Hebraic use of kai, which often doesn't go well in Greek, but is perfectly good Hebrew. So it was granted to him to take peace from the earth. Ignore the kai, don't translate it, in order that they will slaughter alelus, one another. Again, slightly odd here, we're getting a future, not a subjunctive. Kai edothe, and a machaira megale, a great sword, was given auto to him. It's one of the other words for sword. We've had romphea, and here now we're getting this other word for sword. Machaira is more of a sort of dagger type affair rather than a huge broad sword, but at this stage not quite clear exactly what the shape of this is. Kai hoti enoixen ten sphagida ten tritaene kusa tu tritut soe legontes ku. So he maintains this structure all the way through, and when he opened, this is aorist from anoigo again, the third seal, akusa, I heard, plus genitive, the third living creature saying, come. Kai edon, and I saw, and idu hippos melas, behold, there was a black horse. We get hippos, and melas is a third declension. Hippos is a third declension adjective meaning black, so a black horse. And the one sitting upon it having a tsugon in tekeria too. Now tsugon here is a pair of scales. It can mean a yoke, but here in the context of what's coming up in the next line, it must mean a yoke. Sorry, a pair of scales, balancing scales. So having a balancing scales in his hand, kai erkus hos phonon en mesotone tessaron, soion legusan, koinik situ denariu kai tres koinikes krithon denariu, kai to eleon kai ton oinon me adikeses. Now you'll need to consult commentaries to explain in more detail what this is meant to be about. I'm just going to translate it here. So, and I heard literally like a voice. So as though it were a voice in the midst of the four living creatures. And then we get a participle feminine agreeing with phone, a voice saying. Now koinix is a liquid measure, or so a koinix, it's often just translated as a quart. It's a little over 1 litre apparently in modern terms. And we get situ genitive and denariu genitive, so it's genitive of price. So a quart, a denarius worth of situ of grain. Kai tres koinices, that's the plural of koinix, third declension. 3 quarts, another genitive of price, and a denarius's worth of crithon's barley. Kaiton eleon, kaiton oinon, me adikese. So we get me plus the subjunctive for in place of imperative from adikio. Adikio means to do wrong. It's the meaning here is being stretched somewhat to the sense of damage or spoil. So do not damage or do not spoil the eleon, the olive oil, and the wine. Again, you'll need to look at commentaries to expound this a bit more as to precisely what its intent and import is here in this context. Kai enoixen ten sphagida ten tetaten eku sophonen tu tetatut zoe legontos erku. And when he opened the 4th seal, Ekusa, I heard the voice of the 4th living creature. Now, interesting variation here. We get legontos agreeing with Zoe, which is what we had, I think, before in one of back in verse 3 we had the same structure. In the last section up here we had legusan, which is a feminine participle agreeing with phone. So a slight variation back up here when it's gone back to the form that it had before. This may be just for the sake of variation. Greek liked to do that. But I just note that there is a slight difference in the structure here. And when he opened the 4th seal, I heard the voice of the 4th living creature, who was saying, Erku, come. Kai edon, kai idu hippos chloros, kai hokathemenos epano autu, onoma autu hothanatos, kai hohedes ekoluthe met autu. And I saw, and behold, a hippos chloros. Chloros is one of these funny colour terms in Greek. They're often very difficult and quite notorious to pin down. This one generally is often thought of as a yellowish green colour. We get chlorine, which if you've seen chlorine gas, it has a greenish tint to it, yellow-green tint, chlorophyll, all those sort of things with chlor in them. So here it's probably has more the sense, it's often rendered here as pale, and the horse may be what's known as a bay horse. And the one sitting epano autu, on top of it. Now again, slight variation here. We had up above the one sitting, we had just a straight epi previously, ep auton. This time we get epano, which is a combination of epi plus the ano root, meaning on top of or above. So the one sitting on or perhaps above it, the name for him, Hothanatos, was death. Kai Hades akoluthe metautu, and Hades was following with him. Now, interesting, Hades is elsewhere thought of as a place, it appears in the New Testament, as it is in later Greek thought. Hades was originally the brother of Zeus, so he was thought of as a person. The editor here has not put a capital A, so he's perhaps implying that the writer here is still thinking of the place, but it is odd that, that Hades is following with him. Kai eidos theautois exousia epi tetaton tes geis apoktenoi in Romphea kai in limo kai in thanato kai hupotherion tes geis. And authority, edothe, there's our aorist passive again, was given to him, epitetaton, over a quarter. This is the tetaton we saw here. It meant the fourth. Here it's just the tetaton, the fourth, but we have to say in English a quarter of. So over a quarter of the earth, tes geis. Apoktenoi, infinitive here, to kill. And this is from apokteno, aorist infinitive, so to kill. And now we get this use of en, meaning with, which again is Hebraistic, but it's become fairly common, I think, in the New Testament. So to kill with a romphea, with a sword, there's another word for sword, and with limos, which is famine, and with death. And then oddly enough we get hupo plus the genitive rather than en, as though the main verb was passive, which it's not. So it's to kill by means of a sword, by means of famine, and by means of death. And we could translate the hupo here by means of the wild beasts of the earth. This is from that diminutive therion, which is a diminutive, neuter. Thera is the word for beast, and then in later Greek you get therion, a little beast. So by the beasts of the earth. So just to finish off that bit fairly again, just to summarise it here. And when he opened the fourth seal, I heard the voice of the fourth living creature saying, "Come." And I saw, and behold, there was a pale, or perhaps a bay horse, a pale horse, and the one sitting on top of it, its name was Death, and Hades was following with it. And authority was given to them over a quarter of the earth to kill by means of sword, by means of famine, and with death, and by means of, or perhaps at the hands of, the hupo, at the hands of the wild beasts, the therion tes geis of the earth. And that's the first part of chapter 6.